Welcome to the Big Mike Fund Podcast, where you learn about advanced wealth building strategies from real estate investing to creating massive ROI and secured retirement profits. So pour yourself a cup of coffee, grab a notepad, and lean in. Because Big Mike has got the mic, starting now.
Welcome to the Big Mike Fund Podcast. I'm the Big Mike Zlatnik. Today, it is my distinct pleasure and a privilege to welcome Lee Arnold. Hi, Lee.
Hi, Mike. How are you, sir?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for having me here. I appreciate it.
Thank you for coming. And Lee's a brother from the Collective Genius Mastermind. That's how we connected. We do interact in many direct dimensions. And Lee is an international speaker, trainer, author, and licensed real estate broker. He is like me, private money lender. He's been doing this for a long time. And he's been featured in a number of well-known publications: Forbes, Boston Globe, Market Watch, Reuters, Business Week, and he's well known. So that's a little bit of introduction. Again, thank you for coming on the podcast. Could you tell the audience a little bit about you? Where do you live? Where's your family? I know you are a servant in your heart, and you help great causes. Specifically the Solomon Ministry. I guess you're a minister, right? That's your real calling.
Yeah, amongst other things, I am an ordained minister, and we have church services every Sunday morning online. So that's at our he'sthesolution.com website. That's a nonprofit that we run here as well.
That's amazing. But to tell us a little bit about you and your family. Where do you live?
Yeah, so my name is Lee Arnold. I am married. My wife's name is Jacqueline. We have 3 kids. We have twins that are going to be turning teenagers in December. Then we have a younger son that is going to be 12 in February. We had 3 kids in 14 months, so that was interesting. And we are up in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, which is about 100 miles south of the Canadian border in the panhandle of Idaho. It's kind of an unknown secret gem, if you will. We've been up here for about 10 years now. We just absolutely love it. It's beautiful.
That's great to hear. It's a great small town America, it sounds like, on the border with Canada, so we're close to the Canada.
That's right. Yep.
How is the weather? I'm sure it gets pretty cold in the winter.
It does get pretty cold here in the winters, but I always have this conversation with people who live in these warm weather climates, because it seems like everyone is spending at least 4 months inside. If you're in the South, you're spending 4 months inside in the summer because it's too hot. And here where I live, we're spending 4 months in the winter because it's too cold. But it's a outdoor paradise. A lot of recreation, a lot of skiing, snowmobiling, backpacking, hiking. A lot of people move here for quality of life because it is absolutely amazing. It's just beautiful, and we enjoy all the seasons, and we recreate all 12 months of the year. It's fantastic.
That's great to hear. I certainly love the cold. I would take the cold any day of the week rather than the heat. But so I
I agree with you.
Yeah, it sounds great. So let's talk a little bit about your business. Just talk a little bit about your hard money lending business. You have an investment fund and you have a hard money operation. Just give the viewers a little bit of overview of what do you do? What's your primary business? You're a great info marketer, obviously, and very successful fund manager and a hard money lender.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have something here, Mike, called what we call the circle of wealth. And the circle of wealth is where we want to educate people first. So that's what my info marketing business is. It's about educating people in the right ways to invest in real estate, the right types of real estate to invest in. And of course, we're always going to educate and inform in a way that is in alignment with our private lending entity, which is called Coeur Capital. So through our education, we teach people the right types of properties to buy, which are the types of properties we want to fund. Through Coeur, we do lend nationwide. We're currently in 47 states, lending all over the nation. And then we do that through now 2 private equity funds. We closed our first equity fund. It was a 5-year fund, so we raised that up and shut that one down. We still have Fund 2, which is actively being raised. That is a 506c fund. And then we just launched our 3rd fund, which is a Reg A Plus fund, which is the non-accredited investor crowdfunding platform, which has been really interesting. We are learning a lot through that experience. But it's through the funds now that we then fund those loans through Coeur Capital. And then we wrap everything together with our servicing arm, which is called Lake City Servicing, and we manage all of our paper internally. And then we also sell off a lot of our notes to other investors, and then we'll maintain the servicing for them as well through what's called a sub-servicer relationship. And so that is our circle of wealth, which is then tied together by the middle. My philosophy is once you've made everything you need for you and your family, that now it's time to give back to others and their families. And we support a number of different charities as well as through our nonprofit, He's the Solution Ministries, which preaches Christ all over the world. So that's kind of all our full circle, and it's what we call internally as the circle of wealth.
That's a great name. That's a phenomenal name, and it's certainly ear-catching name, and it's a great business. I certainly subscribe to the fund model, being a fund manager, and
Right.
makes a lot of sense. So let me ask you a quick question. Why did you decide to go Reg A? Again, most fund managers go 506C because it's, you only take accredited investors. Reg A benefit is non-accredited, but it's hard. It's a lot
Right.
of small investors.
Right. A lot of small investors. And Mike, you were probably one of the people that was encouraging us not to go that direction. And I can tell you this, that since we've gone that direction, I 100% agree with your advice.
Well, live and learn, right? There's nothing more than the most valuable lesson you can learn is from your own. In this case, probably not a mistake. It's just something you try, and then you see how it goes. And if it goes well, great, do more of it. And if it doesn't, you don't do any more of that.
Right. And I'll tell you, Mike, that I'm certainly a much bigger fan of the 506C fund environment. As you know, it requires an accredited investor. Our minimum investment into that fund is $50,000, which of course is going to bring you a more sophisticated borrower or a more sophisticated lender, somebody that gets it, somebody that is willing to take on some risk, although you and I both know that it's relatively risk-free in those fund environments just because the type of assets that we're investing in. But I started the Reg A fund simply because in the education space, we serve a lot of people. I mean, I got 600,000 customers around the country, and 99% of them are not accredited. And they all have self-directed IRA accounts. They've got money laying around to the tune of $3,000, $5,000, $10,000. So honestly, Mike, I went the Reg A Plus route simply so that I could have an environment where those loyal customers that have been with me years and years and years would have somewhere that they could go and enjoy the fund environment, the security of a fund environment, as opposed to just kind of floundering about trying to figure out how they could get $5,000 or $10,000 in a self-directed IRA seeded and funded somewhere. So it was really motivated by my customers, not so much by the economics. Because at the end of the day, I'm here to serve, and I want to serve as many people as I can. And I just felt that the Reg A Plus allowed me to serve more customers in more places.
I think you gave a great answer. Honestly, you're serving all those people. You're giving them an opportunity to invest with somebody who they trust, and you're doing the work for a little bit of money. In essence, that's what comes down to Reg A, because you have a lot of customers. You have massive investor relationship work that you have to manage, because every customer is a customer, right?
That's right.
And they investor with you, and you have to communicate with them. They got to get their statements, and they got to get their questions answered, and so on.
That's
so
right.
That's one of the reasons why I would never do that, even if I had the universe of people that You'd probably give them a better product or a service, or let them enjoy something else rather than taking a little bit of their money and then, because it's a lot of work managing accounts. So
yeah. It is a lot of work managing accounts. But what we discovered, Mike, because I've been in the education space now over 20 years, and we have taught tens of thousands of people around this country, as much as I would like for everybody to be successful as a real estate investor, as a real estate entrepreneur, the bottom line is that's just not realistic,
right?
Because everybody's got different skill sets, everybody's got different schedules, everybody's got different agendas. So unfortunately, not everybody is going to be able to participate in real estate investing, even though I firmly believe that it is available to any and all that want to engage. But at the end of the day, it's not as easy as people say it is. It doesn't, it's not the 4-hour work week. I do not subscribe to that. And for those that are really going to be successful at it, there's going to be a much larger commitment required. And sadly, most are going to have to sit along the sidelines and watch because they can't actively participate. But the Reg A fund, my minimum investment is only $1,000, and you don't have to be accredited. So it allowed those that just are never going to be able to participate in the real estate investing and flipping side of the business, that they at least can have their money out, actively deployed, producing returns, and doing great things in markets all over the U.S. And I think for a lot of people, that gives them the fulfillment that they're looking for.
Makes a lot of sense. You're serving them and you're giving them an opportunity to participate. So that makes a lot of sense. Let's switch the subject a little bit.
Okay.
Let's talk a little bit about real estate nowadays. So what do you think about, and again, you land in all 50 states, and we do relationship-driven business. We don't look for new business. For us, a little different model. For you, I don't know, are you still marketing? Are you still finding quality borrowers? What do you feel from a borrower acquisition standpoint, and then just general market? What do you like to land on? What do you see things, how things are going in most markets?
Our primary...
Focus where you have presence, where you have most presence.
Okay, so we are lending predominantly in your B and C tertiary markets because we're going to have a hard time competing in, your LAs, your Miamis, your Manhattans. Those that are lending in those markets already have such a presence there that to beat them, it's all going to be price driven. As you know, Mike, we're in the money business and it's a commoditized business. So if there's not a relationship with that borrower, if your prices aren't as good or better than the next closest competitor, they're going to go somewhere else and get the money. As much as I wish there was more loyalty in the money space, as an investor, I get it. The economics say I've got to go to the cheapest provider who requires the least amount of effort. And that's kind of where the market is pushing to. There's so much capital compression costs right now that we are seeing more and more, because one of our slogans within Cogo Capital is we will beat any competitor's price. And we are seeing more and more of these competitors coming in with rates at 7%, 6%. And the cost of capital just keeps getting pushed lower and lower and lower. And what concerns me more than anything, Mike, is that a lot of the capital compression, in my opinion, from a cost standpoint, is coming because margins are getting thinner and thinner and thinner. Because there's a lot of people that have entered the space, a lot of people who probably shouldn't be in the space, and they're driving prices up, which is causing these investors to have to push back on all of the other costs that they're dealing with, both on money and rehab, carrying costs, insurance proceeds, the whole thing. And the reason that's concerning to me is, it's the story of the guy giving stock advice while he's shining your shoes. When everybody's in the market, it would suggest there's a bubble and there's an imminent crash when there's a bubble. Because of that, I would consider us to be a little bit more conservative fund in that we tend to focus on single families only. I would say about 90% of our entire fund is single family. And we serve a space predominantly under $100,000, which is an area that a lot of other investors and a lot of funds just don't play in. A lot of our competitors will tell you, if it's not $100,000 or more, we don't even want the deal. So as a company, we said, okay, where can we be strategically aligned that we're not getting beat on price simply because we're commoditized? And we found that under $100,000 price point to be very, very good for us. Now, because of that, that's going to take us out of some of your larger markets, your Southern Californias, your Miamis, your Manhattans, which puts us now a lot in Midwestern states. But the reason that this doesn't concern me, there's an old adage. What do you call a stockbroker in a recessionary downturn?
Unemployed?
Waiter.
Okay.
Okay. What do you call a private money hedge fund manager in a recessionary downturn?
I guess waiter as well.
Landlord. Right?
Okay, yeah.
So, Mike, you and I both know that if there is a recession, and I do believe that we're seeing a cooling off period, and I do predict that we're going to start seeing real estate values dropping. I'm seeing more and more realtors sending out these, $10,000 price drop emails, and this is happening all over the nation from what I'm seeing. So, as this begins to decline, as we now see our foreclosure or our default rate on the servicing side inching up, one of the things that gives me comfort and allows me to sleep at night on behalf of myself and my investors is a lot of the assets that we're in the event we have to recover those assets and then manage them as a portfolio, they will be hugely profitable from a cash flow standpoint, where we can achieve yields pushing 18, 19, 20% simply because the nature of our loan portfolio and the price point of the product. So we can rent those out and be sitting very good, very good.
Yeah, that's a great summary of a good markets, good sub markets, and I certainly agree with you. We do a ton of small loans in non-coastal markets, and we certainly like them as well because they present much more stable markets and less price competitive, let me put it this way. So there's no argument. But you did touch on an important point that the margins are getting thinner for all these fix and flip guys, and they're pushing back on everything: cost of money, cost of materials. Well, the cost of labor and the cost of materials have been going up steadily.
Yep.
And then, but as a lender, I certainly don't like to be in the position, and I'd like to hear your thoughts, where the products, the loans themselves are getting more aggressive from LTV perspective, less skin in the game, kind of, and you're getting paid less and less. At some point, mathematically speaking, risk-adjusted return is just no longer interesting enough. Let me put it this way.
That's exactly right.
Right. So how do you deal with this? How do you, that's a common problem today. The yields have been compressing. The prices have been, for money, have been too cheap under the normal market conditions. So the market is flooded with big boys coming in, Genesis coming in and kind of flooding the market significantly, Goldman Sachs buying them, and a number of other players.
Right.
So how do you solve this problem? What do you do? Just reduce your lending volume? You stick with your underwriting discipline, or do you get a little bit more flexible? What are your thoughts on the subject?
Well, that's one of the things that I really enjoy about the structure and the nature of our company, Mike, is that lending is not our only income stream. It is just one of our income streams. We have the education side of our company. We are putting on events nationwide. We are continually bringing on new clients that are getting involved with us on the education to learn how to invest in real estate the right way. And we do something very unique in that certainly we charge for our education, as do a lot of other companies that do real estate investment education. But what we do is, when you buy into any of our education programs, if you will flip 4 houses in your first year with our organization and use Kogo Capital as your lender, we will return your investment into education. So we kind of have a built-in constituency of people that have to use us as their lender because they want to get their return on investment for that education. So that's one of the things that we do just to kind of separate us from all the competitors and all the noise that's out there. Additionally, Mike, we are also a full-service fix and flip company ourselves. So here in my own backyard, which is the Spokane Coeur d'Alene Metro, or MA, we are actively buying, fixing, and flipping real estate right here in our own backyard, which allows us to have our own internal control over a portfolio of properties locally where we are managing the flipping. So if we can't get our money deployed through our marketing efforts, through our education efforts, we can deploy it through our own internal buy, fix, and flip rehab efforts. We are also in the process now of acquiring assets, multifamily properties here locally that we can manage, produce the rates of returns that our investors need, while still keeping that money local where we can manage it, oversee it. And because of all of these other ancillary opportunities, these other ancillary income things, we are not so beholden upon originating loans to pay our bills. And that's where I think a lot of companies are going to find themselves getting into trouble, because as the market continues to push down on rates and pricing, the only way they can win is to reduce their rate. And it gets to a point where if you're offering a 7 or an 8 pref to your investors and you got to be at 6 to win, you're running a very, very risky position, in my opinion, simply to keep the lights on. And that's a bad place to be as a fund manager. in my opinion. So while I'm seeing all this capital compression, to answer your question, Mike, and there's a very long answer, we are not making adjustments to our underwriting guidelines. I'm of the opinion I'm gonna stay where we need to be to keep our investors safe. And when the market ultimately adjusts, as we all know it's going to do, a lot of our now competitors are going to be our wholesale acquisition opportunities as they find themselves in a massive state of default, and we can now purchase those portfolios from them at pennies on the dollar. So that's kind of my outlook on the future and where I anticipate the market going.
Yeah, that's a great strategic view, and I'm glad to hear you got you're one of the few CG guys who is very successful at the information marketing, and a lot of people try it. It's a hard business. So if you are successful educating, and these folks can actually not only learn but implement and do flips and use your hard money, you have kind of all in-house services related to the to these folks. And yeah, it makes sense. I mean, we did a little different. I think we breached into traditional real estate. And it sounds like you're doing the same. You're basically branching out to local investing, right? Anything that makes opportunistic sense, multifamily, individual fix and flips, locally, where you're sort of the king of the town, the king of the house. I mean, you know your market, and we've branched away from hard money into just real estate 101. Whatever makes economic sense, self-storage, multifamily, as long as the project's economically viable, we look at them, because the hard money is just not what it used to be, and it's probably not going to get any better unless and until the recession corrects the market, and there's got to be some correction. And you're totally right. These prices are already have corrected and correcting on the higher end stuff, and on affordable stuff, the range that you're talking about. The correction hasn't yet settled in. Certainly, there's still people chasing yield. People are still buying turnkeys. People are still buying least expensive properties on the market because there's nothing cheaper. So from that perspective, that range is still doing very well, going to continue to do. But there are a lot of wannabes who are consuming some supply and some creating some transaction volume. But the reality is that it will be a game of professionals. So anyway, sorry, you wanted to say something. I apologize.
No, I actually wanted to ask you a question because being a CG guy, Mike, you know, or at least you should know, that all of us in CG really look to you as kind of having your thumb on the pulse of the economy as a whole. And I wanted to ask you the question, where do you think the market is heading? What is the size of the correction that you anticipate? When do you anticipate it occurring, and what length of time do you expect it to last? And I understand that you don't have a crystal ball, and I won't hold you to any of this, but I'm just really curious to get your opinion of the market and where we're at with things.
Well, sure. I've talked about this many times. So number one, I used to have a crystal ball. It was a great crystal ball, but it broke, and I'm looking to buy one. It's hard to find a good one for sale nowadays. Yeah. So the job of a fund manager is not to foresee the future, but to prepare for different conditions. Right. That's the bottom line. If you can prepare for the good, the bad, and the ugly, that helps you quite a bit with whatever, no matter what happens. So we certainly, inverted yield curve and everything else. We are projecting recession 2020, some level of recession, and the stock market is showing signs of volatility. Real estate market is being supported by lower rates. So what's interesting is, again, it's a Federal Reserve monetary policy. On my previous episode, I had a very brilliant lady. She's an economist and a investment director, and it's in the short run. There's going to be probably some level of an upkick. Again, dropping interest rates, the economy is still cranking, but in the long run, corporate price to earning ratios are too high. People are overpaying for the assets, and it's true in real estate. People are paying cap rates that are just too historically low. So again, if interest rates continues to drop, where they're going to stop at some point, right? They're not going to. Maybe we're going to Japan model. I'm not sure, but the bottom line is the supply demand for those properties are going to balance out, and all the dumb money, sort of the dumb and dumb money, the foreign money, the money that's not looking for proper return, not looking for right risk-adjusted return, will cycle through the system, and what you're going to be left with is more intelligent money, more opportunistic money, right? And then the demand will be opportunistic demand, and you're going to have sort of some level of correction. Now, I don't see any major correction because interest rates are supporting real estate markets, they're supporting stock market, they're supporting everything, and the Fed is moving in that direction. But they're going to run out of ammo at some point. The reason they went into the loosening cycle is because they need the economy to continue to keep rolling. Nobody wants to stop the great run of the last 10 years.
Right.
But all good things must come to an end. So you're not looking at a crash, you're looking at just some level of asset correction. Inflation itself is low, right? I mean, you got the consumer, the CPI inflation, and then the kind of the headline inflation, with what people think versus what people track, right? So that whole universe of low inflation combined with low interest rates creates sort of asset bubbles. And then we are still in a continuous asset bubble, but the bubble is not going to pop because the fundamentals are not there to pop. We're not looking at a major world events unless, God forbid, something happens really bad.
Right.
So if it's a steady slowdown without major consumer confidence drop or anything major, we're looking at some light correction, and the first things that go are typically things that are not cash flowing well, right? The key here, if you invest with good cash flow and you focus on cash flowing assets and you take less risk, you probably can survive any moderate correction. I also like to think of the stress test conditions. So anything we want to invest in, we want to look from a stress test perspective. What if the cap rates get worse? What if cash flow gets worse? Can you survive those conditions? So now you just got to be patient, buckle up for, certainly the next 10 years of return should be lower than the past 10. And if you take that to heart and you invest with, the three basic rules of investing, right? People who you know, like, and trust. So you got to pick the right people who you're investing with. 2, got to pick the right assets that are defensive in nature. I like to use the word defensive. Good downside protection. Hard money lending itself is a defensive mechanism, right? We are in first lien position, but you certainly got to pick affordable housing, things that, generally speaking, are not likely going to fall in a slowing down market. We're totally staying away from is the high-end stuff. It's softening everywhere. Will continue to soften. The moment affordability gets worse, people start losing jobs. Those assets just go for first. I mean, and they don't correct 5%. They correct 20%, 25%. They correct significantly.
Yep.
So, and then you certainly got to diversify, right? As a fund manager, that's the job number one. So if you build a diversified portfolio, you can withstand pretty much anything that the market will throw at you. So again, I gave you a long answer to a short question, but yeah, I wish I had a good crystal ball. It's just, hard to find. So,
well, and I wrote this down. I want to make sure, because I'm going to quote you on this, Mike. You said the job of a fund manager is not to predict the future, but to protect against change.
It is to prepare.
To prepare.
To prepare for good, the bad, and the ugly.
Okay.
So you're preparing for various conditions. You're preparing for all likely possibilities that could happen. And that is the most important thing. You're not, again, you're a fund manager too. And too many people are trying to predict the future. It's too hard. It's too hard, but you could certainly prepare for conditions where you're not going to be able to put as much money to work. What do you do? Like, I mean, some of the questions I think, and I ask internally, what if we can't put out the same amount of hard money we're putting out today? What do we do? Right. You have a few options. What if the transaction volume just comes down? I mean, it could be some level of, the whole U.S. economy runs on the velocity of money, right? It just turns. But if the confidence drops, something happens. You got significant slowdown in velocity of money, and then you got that kind of conditions. Ultimately, you just got to have more cash, be prepared, And if the yield drops and you fund investors, just as a fund manager, you got to set expectations. Communicate with them. It's one of the things that I like to do. It's to communicate. Good honest communications and letting them know what's going on helps them set expectations. They may be used to better returns, but if you tell them, listen, it's not what it used to be, and I'm not saying this because I don't want to pay you better returns. It is just to make sure you're patient. And you have a broad range, a lot of investors. If they're patient, they have long-term horizon, and they're confident with you as a fund manager, you wind up getting a better long-term investors, and the expectations are reasonable. That's sort of
Right.
so. Let me ask you a couple more questions. I know we're running my podcast, and it's all for my audience. I'd love folks to hear your opinion rather than my opinion. So, what is your best investment advice? What do you recommend? Do you have a good general investment advice or anything specific to real estate?
Yeah, the best advice I can give people is to invest local. I have seen, and Mike, we've all met a lot of these people who, they went to some event, some seminar, they saw something online, and they bought some house in the Midwest. They never went out and looked at it. They have no direct control or oversight of that asset, and they ended up losing a lot of money. My philosophy is you should not be investing at a greater distance than 25-mile radius from where you live. Now, granted, I'm giving that advice to the future investor, the part-time investor. Certainly, as you've grown your nest egg and you've got a couple $1 million, you may need to go outside of that radius to deploy some of that capital. But at that point, you also have enough operational experience that you can build teams in various markets, and you can have the same amount of internal control through KPIs and SOPs that manage that process. But I see too many investors that are putting money into assets, thousands of miles from where they live, simply because they don't think they can do anything locally and make money at it. And I would argue that for most investors, there are deals locally that can be had. One of the areas that we encourage a lot of our clients to look at is the code enforcement lien abatement process, because there's a lot of municipalities right now that are sitting on rundown, vacant, abandoned inventory. It's caught up in the court system. Nobody can make heads or tails of it. And the cities are just looking for somebody that has a clue what's going on and is backed by capital. One of the things I love about the code enforcement process is it's local. You can help your municipality. You can help the neighbors within your community. You can take blighted properties and make them livable assets again for the owner-occupant. And it just produces so much goodwill for your business, for who you are as an operator, helping that community. And then there's funding readily available to take on those types of deals. But best advice I can give is, as much as you can, stay local. Where you can control it. One of my favorite quotes in terms of investing and even managing funds, the best fertilizer for the garden is the footsteps of the farmer.
That's great.
So I want to invest in assets where I can have oversight, I can have control, and if something does go fundamentally wrong, that I can address it very quickly, get in there, get my hands dirty, and take care of the situation. And I think for, Mike, for those that entrust their funds to us, that's what they want to see from us as well, is knowing that wherever it is, whatever's going on, that we are going to go in and we're going to take care of it. And I have found that local assets are just so much easier to manage and get better yields out of, because the efficiency of your operation. So that would be my advice.
That's certainly great advice. As they say, all real estate local. So if you know your neck of the woods and you could be good at it, you could find all kinds of gems. And the code enforcement lien search is a great land of opportunity. If you're looking for deals, the code enforcement lists exist, and they provide opportunities if you're looking for distressed properties locally. Yeah, so those are great feedback. The next question is, do you have a good book, business book or a real estate book to recommend?
Yeah, one of my favorite books is a book that I would have never read, but my wife was getting her MBA. This was a few years ago, and she was assigned the book called The Goal by Elihu Goldratt. I don't know if you've read this book, but a tremendous book. It's a parable about a gentleman that is a consultant, and his job is to go into manufacturing companies that are underperforming and fix them and make them performing. And it kind of walks you through the process of everything that he addresses along the way to determine where, there are log jams within the operation, where he has single points of failure along the process. And it was just a really good book that was an easy read that really got you thinking about, business from start to finish. And people often think that, for us as fund managers, that our only job is to identify an asset and write a check. As you know, it's not even close to being that simple or that easy. It begins with marketing for quality borrowers who understand how to find quality assets, who understand how to put the right deal together to get the right cash flow, to have the funding and the financial wherewithal to get us the right financial statements and the tax returns that they haven't filed, and to be able to operate that asset to the point where it's producing enough cash flow to cover our monthly costs for our debt service, to now fixing the asset up, to marketing it to get it sold, to repaying that loan so that we can go do it again. And it's procedural, and most people don't think of things from that standpoint. They think, I'm going to buy a house, I'm going to fix a house. Well, yeah, okay, fundamentally, yes, that's what you're doing. But there's so many things along the way. And the goal is the best book I have read that really, truly conveys that message in a way that's understandable, no matter what level you're at. If you've never done a deal, if you've never owned a business, to you have a billion-dollar fund, I think that everybody's going to benefit from that book.
Thank you for sharing. That's a very interesting book. I gotta go listen to it. I listen to books nowadays more than I read on Audible. But thank you for sharing. How does someone get in touch with you if they wanted to learn a little bit about? They wanted to borrow from you or invest with you. What's the best way to get a hold of you?
The easiest way to get a hold of me, Mike, is for them to just go to securedinvestmentcorp.com, securedinvestmentcorp.com. That's where you can learn about our equity funds. You can learn about our circle of wealth philosophy. You can learn about our underwriting guidelines, our criteria, our funding, our portfolio performance. Everything is there at securedinvestmentcorp.com.
That's great. Thank you, Lee. I greatly appreciate your wisdom, your thoughts, and sharing. And any other final parting thoughts? Any other feedback?
Yeah, one of the best pieces of advice that I've ever received from any mentor of mine, Mike, was this, and that is, don't leave your success in the hands of others. While yes, the economy is going to be making adjustments, for the people that are just writing checks in hopes that whoever they're giving their money to is going to manage it to a level that they can be comfortable and get the returns that they're looking for, while certainly that's what you and I do as private equity fund managers, I just would really implore people to make sure you're doing your due diligence, because as the market heats up and money is being tossed around like it's candy, there are so many things that sound really good, but the old adage, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. I'm seeing more and more of these bad actors popping up. I'm seeing more of these crowdfunding opportunities popping up, and the assets that they're putting out there, in my opinion, are going to put people in harm's way when the market does ultimately adjust. So don't leave your success in the hands of others. Don't wait for somebody else to do your due diligence for you and say, hey, you should put your money in here and just, haphazardly write a check. I would encourage people, it's more important now than ever to make sure that you're doing your due diligence on the people you're doing business with, to do your background checks on the people that you're ultimately giving your money to manage it for you, and just be careful. There's a lot of what looks like great opportunities out there, but as you know, Warren Buffett said, you find out who's swimming in the nude when the tide goes out. And I believe that the tide is going to be going out, and a lot of those that are kind of right now riding the high, rising tide lifts all boats. Well, when the tide goes out and those boats go down, a lot of those that don't have operational infrastructure to offset the downturn, I think that they're going to find themselves in a tough spot. And I would hate for any of your listeners, Mike, to find themselves in a spot where, their money just is not producing the same types of returns that it has in the past. So just do your own due diligence. Don't leave your success in the hands of others.
Yeah, that's a great advice. I certainly subscribe to this. And we've talked quite a bit on the educational content and part of internally. We certainly focus on underwriting. And yep. As a fund manager, this is one of the key jobs, is to make sure you underwrite. Wherever you put the money, you're underwriting the people, the principal, the sponsors, the fund managers, the borrowers. You are certainly underwriting the deal, specific deal or deals or funds, their portfolios, and so on, and certainly how they manage the life cycle. So,
yeah, and what we say internally, Mike, is a loan well underwritten is a loan half collected.
Yeah, for sure. If you make an investment, good investment once, you could have many months and years worth of performance for sure. And I absolutely agree with you. There's a lot of garbage out there. Yep. So in terms of syndicated deals that are circulating PPMs out there, in general, if you find stuff on the internet, most of the stuff is crap. I mean this with all due respect. There's plenty of information marketers have successful organizations, but a lot of product out there is just, it's well-marketed product. By itself, the product is pretty crappy, right? Whatever it is, it's a self-storage syndication or multifamily syndications. The terms are not fair, one-sided. The deal is too risky, too much leverage, too much value add, so many variables that can blow up. And yeah, don't assume things will go the way they went last few years. So from that perspective, yeah, it's a great advice. Be a better steward of your own money. So
yes.
Lee, thank you kindly for your wisdom. Thank you for coming on the podcast. We're running out of time. Let's jump on a call again, and maybe I'll come back on your podcast one of these days.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks for having me, Mike. I really appreciate it.
Thank you,
Have
Lee.
a great day. Thank you.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Big Mike Fund Podcast. To receive your copy of Mike's How to Choose a Smart Real Estate Fund book, head to BigMikeFund.com or visit Amazon and type Mike Zlotnick. Keep listening and keep investing Big Mike style. See you on the next episode.